It was a normal Saturday like any other. For some reason I work on Saturdays when most people take the day off to spend time with their families. Not me. I like my solitude and my quiet. Little ankle biters are noisy and their fingers get a little sticky, especially around the time of the week for allowance. But that's when she came in. She's the type of broad that you want to call a lady, so that you can later refer to her as a dame to your friends. I bet those legs of hers go all the way up. I'll be honest, I'm not sure if they do or don't. I've actually never seen her games before. I'm not sure she even has limbs like a normal person. Anyway, she said she had a thing she wanted me to check out.
I have a thing I want you to check out.
I could tell by the way she was looking at me. She meant business. I would pull my hat down to match her intensity, but, well, I managed to forget to buy a fedora as a prop for this episode because I'm a dickhead. So, instead, I'll just straighten my tie. I suppose you take me for some sucker who would be interested in what strange women have to show me. I thought I was being clever and not tipping my hand that I'm still trying to figure out if this dame had legs.
It's your job to do these types of things, isn't it?
Okay, so she had me there. This skirt is smart. I can see I might have to up my game. Oh, you have me there, doll. What do you have for me over there?
Are you sure you can handle it? It might be a little too much for you to handle.
Oh, I can handle it, sweet cheeks. I wasn't so sure I could handle it. I just wanted to see how far she would take this charade.
I'm not sure. This might be above your pay grade.
So it's hardball, is it? So you're playing hardball with me, eh?
Look here, fella. I ain't interested in talking to a drip. Are you wanting to know about this dope I'm bringing, or are we just whistling Dixie?
Oh, this cookie was shrewd, all right. Nah, I ain't no cold fish. What do you got over there?
I like your moxie, Dreamboat. Here, I want you to take a look at this.
Now we're getting down to business. Ah, yes, blonde ice, made by some geezer named Jack Bernhard.
I thought that would attract your attention.
Lady, that's not all that you've attracted. Can I get you something to drink? I have water. I probably have a half-drunken Coke around here somewhere.
I'll have a bourbon.
Yeah, I do have bourbon. Want me to cut that?
I like my bourbon like I like my rulers. Straight.
Oh, this little chickie doesn't mess around. There you go. So, why bring this to me? What makes you think this is suitable for me to look into?
I asked around town. They told me you were the B-Movie guy.
Oh yeah? They did they?
Yes, they did.
And who's they?
Look, are you gonna take this case, or are you blowing smoke up my skirt?
Well, now take it easy there, honey. I just want to make sure you ain't setting the guy up, see?
You don't trust people, do you, Mr. Enema Man?
I'm not really in the practice of trusting strange women to show up in my office out of the blue.
You seem to know a little bit about blonde ice. What else do you have to say about this, Anchor Clanker?
Well, I do know that this is a femme fatale type movie, and one of the more interesting things about this is our director, the aforementioned fella Jack Bernhard. He served in World War II overseas in England. There he met the lovely Jean Gilly, and they married, and she appeared in his first film that he directed, Decoy. Now that movie was about how Jean Gilly tells a story about how she and her gang revived an executed killer to find out where he buried a bunch of cash. Now, here's the thing about that movie. That movie wasn't a horror film. Now, Jean and Jack were married in May 1944, but they divorced in 1947, and sadly, Jean died just a couple years later at the youthful age of 33 from pneumonia. Now, Bernhardt only made a few movies. Most of his work was done between 1946 and 1950, and he would make mostly B-movies, but a lot of dramas and noir films. In some ways, I suppose you could say he was doing a lot of exploitation-type work back in those days. But here's the interesting fact about this fellow. In 1959, Bernhardt was uncredited as a director for Gigantus the Fire Monster. Now, most people don't know that movie by that name. Oh no. Gigantus the Fire Monster was the American version of the Japanese sequel film Godzilla Raids Again. And I have to assume that Bernhardt was involved in some way with the American dubbing or something like that once it was imported. But let me cut to the chase here. Blonde Ice was released in 1948, but was likely made sometime in 1946. This is a classic case of the Internet Movie Database saying one thing, while Wikipedia says another. Being that it was a small picture, it probably did need some distribution, and it took some time to get it out to the movie houses and the drive-ins around the country, but it eventually came through and made it out in July 1948. Now, this movie itself gets a little bit of appreciation, especially from our femme fatale Claire Cummings, played by Leslie Brooks. And we'll talk about her a little bit later. But I think for now, we should probably get our peepers on this noir classic and get to the skinny. What do you think, Chippy?
That sounds swell to me, fella.
Well, how do you like that? A new bride making the smooches with another fella outside the reception. That's a real kick in the teeth.
That's a dame that knows what she wants and how to get there.
Indeed. Now, our nefarious Claire Cummings is played by Leslie Brooks. Now, Claire is a hard-betting, free-loving, murderous femme fatale. Claire is, today, considered to be one of the all-time greats in the realm of 40s and 50s noir femme fatales. Not so bad for this little B-movie ditty, wouldn't you say?
She's not a cookie to mess with, that's for sure.
Now, Leslie Brooks was only in film for another year, but from 1941 to 1949, she was able to tally something pretty near 30 roles. She was a contract player early on for Columbia Pictures, and while some of her earliest roles were either edited out or uncredited, she did appear in a couple of pictures with some famous faces. She had a bit part in Yankee Doodle Dandy, starring the incomparable James Cagney, and the other fairly famous movie Brooks appeared in was CoverGirl, and that starred Rita Hayworth and Gene Kelly. Also appearing in the supporting role was Phil Silvers, but there's something that CoverGirl connects to that I am just over the moon for. In CoverGirl, Gene Kelly plays Danny McGuire, Hayworth plays Rusty, but also another role as someone who another character loved some 40 years earlier. Now, the character of Danny McGuire appears again 36 years later in the movie Xanadu that I just positively love. Still played by Gene Kelly, he's almost just as smitten with Olivia Newton-John's Kira as our lead played by Michael Beck. And why he's smitten with her is because she reminds him of a woman he knew 40 years before, much like that other fella in CoverGirl was obsessed with a girl who looked like Rita Hayworth's character 40 years previously. Isn't that snazzy?
Look at you grandstanding. You really do know your stuff, don't ya?
Doll, when it comes to Xanadu, you better believe it. But anyway, Claire Cummings is where almost all the positive reviews and appreciation this movie has gets directed. We see her early on still schmoozing with another man moments after she marries an old fuddy-duddy. And when she's caught sending an adoring letter to Les Burns, that past flame of hers, her new husband Carl, in the midst of their honeymoon, decides to make off and leave her with the hotel bill.
Talk about a real swell guy.
He ain't kidding around. Now, immediately, Claire starts to hatch her plan. She calls for a prescription for sleeping pills and charters away back home, where she can meet up with Les, who is more than happy to see her and find out that Carl is supposedly back in New York on business instead of getting handsy with his flame.
And that's when they find Carl's body, collapsed on the floor, and we have the coppers trying to figure out if it was suicide or murder.
Yeah, and ain't nobody buying that suicide jive neither. Again, Louise Brooks gets most of the appreciation for this movie. It's still called a classic and still regarded with some fanfare, but no one denies that it is severely limited by a B-movie budget. In 21st century reviews of this movie, it's cited as being a minor film, but it's a definite precursor of the more modern neo-noir films. Many just say this movie's acting is adequate. The direction is mostly harmed by the budget, but Bernhardt tries to do some interesting things at least. However, critic Gary Johnson in 2003 sums up everything best. He says that the script is deliciously nasty and serves as an audacious expose on the twisted psyche of a truly lethal femme fatale. He goes on to name Claire Cummings among the brutal dames from other popular noir pictures. However, he puts a pretty fine point on her description of being a gold digger with no conscience whatsoever, and that she's out for herself. And anyone gets in the way, well, she packs a revolver and a sharp knife. Now, while we don't necessarily see that in this first segment, we will see it as the movie continues.
She's so cold as ice, she doesn't even have much to say about her husband committing suicide. She just opts for the barely emotional, "Oh no, why would he do that?" This skirt is a crazy killer.
She is indeed. Now back to Leslie Brooks for a moment. There is something kind of fascinating about her, wouldn't you say? I mean, here's a dame who starred only in a handful of movies, mostly just in one decade. Though she did do a final role in a 1971 X-rated drama called How's Your Love Life, with John Agar also playing a role in the movie. You know, that's really an odd way to come out of retirement.
What's that?
Well, here's a lady who made quite a few pictures in the 40s. Not too many well-known ones, but she did play a part with a great deal of zeal, right?
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Then you come out of a 20-plus year retirement to appear alongside another aging star from the 40s and 50s, John Agar, but it's to be in an X-rated movie. Anyway, where was I going with all of this?
Beats me. You were just flapping your lips over there, and I was over here letting you go nuts with it.
Fair enough. Yes. So, I was going to comment on the fact that while Leslie Brooks did have a fairly stable career in the pictures in the 40s, she didn't really have significant parts in many really famous movies. Sure, CoverGirl and Yankee Doodle Dandy are big movies. Blonde Ice is what she'll forever be known for, probably. But those other two aren't leading roles either. She was uncredited in Yankee Doodle Dandy and was listed 6th in the cast for CoverGirl. That said, if you do go to her page on Internet Movie Database, she has a photo section that has 116 pictures in it. There are modern day actresses who are more famous or have far bigger roles that don't have 116 pictures in their IMDb page. It's not too bad for only having about an 8-year career.
I think we better get back to the movie and find out if this broad is going to get what she wants.
I agree with you. Let's get back into Blonde Ice and we'll be back here in a jiffy.
Oh, I love that line about Claire being cold as ice. So good.
Yeah, it is. Her flame Les is hot and bothered when she clearly makes it known that she has other intentions than being with him.
She only wants to be tops.
Yeah, indeed, and she's quickly on the prowl again. Claire needs to find someone that she can better trust with her now deceased husband's estate. So then she locks on to Stanley Mason. He's a lawyer that she thinks would be pretty good to handle that estate.
It doesn't hurt at all that he's running for Congress.
No, it doesn't. Now, the worst part is that Claire's stringing Les along. Les isn't very rich. She might like him. In fact, she might just love him. However, he's just a sports writer at the newspaper. He's not rolling in the lettuce, if you catch my drift.
On top of that, he's pretty high up on the police captain's suspects for the murder of Carl Hanneman.
He sure is. Now, after Les is taken downtown to talk to the coppers about what they think he is or is not being suspected of, he returns to the date that he was on with Claire, but she's already getting her hooks into the future congressman's nether bits. And I do like how Claire is the kind of dame who seems to have anything and everything wrapped around her finger as soon as she wants it. And I guess it might be just the function of a 74-minute film, but Claire works fast. And poor Les is a fool for Claire. He's willing to take the heat from the cops so that they stay off her trail. And he also has to deal with a wormy fellow who was also one of Claire's old flames, Al Herrick. Now let's talk about these two fellows. Now, Les is played by Robert Page, born right here in Indianapolis, Indiana. Page, like Leslie Brooks, worked early on with Columbia Pictures. However, most of his roles were with Universal Pictures, where he got most of his notoriety. He was the heroic lead in 1943's Son of Dracula, opposite Lon Chaney Jr. And later, in his acting career, he appeared in the 1953 comedy Abbott and Costello Go to Mars. But for the most part, Page was a pretty versatile actor who had quite a few roles in movies, and he did a lot of musicals. His last film role was in 1963's Bye Bye Birdie, which starred Janet Leigh, Dick Van Dyke, Anne Margaret, and Maureen Stapleton, and many, many others. Shortly after that, Page began working as a newscaster and political correspondent for ABC News. In the later years of his work, he went on to become Deputy Los Angeles County Supervisor under Baxter Ward, who Ward himself nearly became mayor of Los Angeles. Sometime later in the 70s, Page retired and lived out his last years of life in Southern California before dying in 1987 at the age of 76. One last interesting fact about Page is that his only child, daughter Colleen Page, became a conservationist and author, but she's best known for being a dog trainer and the founder of National Dog Day, which is celebrated every 26th of August. And that date, August 26th, was the date she picked because it was the date that the Page family adopted their first dog from the local shelter when Colleen was only 10 years old.
Well, ain't that just killer diller?
Now, my dear, I bet you're curious about this squirrely guy, Al Herrick, aren't you?
It's like you can read my mind.
Well, Al is played by James Griffith. Now, Griffith is a long-time character actor. He's best known for playing villains. He ended up with over 200 roles in a nearly 40-year career. Blonde Ice was his first movie role, but he quickly picked up role after role after role after that. All up and down his filmography, you'll find recognizable flicks. He was in the original Dragnet movie that would eventually lead to the TV series. He was in not one, but two Stanley Kubrick films, The Killing and Spartacus. He was in The Amazing Transparent Man, Anything Goes, and his last film role was for the TV movie The Legend of Sleepy Hollow in 1980. But over on the TV side, again, credits lined up. He was on Hopalong Cassidy, Laramie a few times, Gunsmoke several times, Perry Mason, Tales of Wells Fargo, The Monkees, Batman, Kung Fu, Kolchak the Night Stalker, and Fantasy Island, just to name some of those big-time shows he was on. He was even in one of Russ Meyer's early black and white films, Lorna. Basically, if you watch enough stuff, you'll run into James Griffith, and he's likely playing an antagonist to whoever you're rooting for in the movie or TV show. Another guy you'd see a whole lot of if you watch enough stuff is Emery Parnell, who plays our police captain trying to find the murderer of Carl Hanneman. Parnell had nearly 350 roles in his career. He had a ton of uncredited roles, but he was also Billy Reed in the Ma and Pa Kettle movies of the early 50s. Later on, once TV came along, you'd not be surprised to see him in most of the popular TV shows of the time, particularly popular westerns. One of his last roles was in an uncredited performance in 1971's The Andromeda Strain, one of the greatest science fiction films ever made. Also, he ended up in 5 of Preston Sturges' films, becoming part of the writer-director stock company of character actors he'd call upon in the 40s. Parnell was born in 1892 and lived until 1979. He had a son, James, who also became an actor, but died tragically at the youthful age of 38. And one last cast member that we need to discuss.
Geez, get on with it, you pain in the neck. I want to know how this movie ends.
All right, I swear this is the last bit to add. The new fellow that has caught Claire's attention and desire to further herself, Congress candidate Stanley Mason, is played by Michael Whalen. He was often in B movies and serials and TV shows. He was already pretty famous for being in Poor Little Rich Girl with Shirley Temple, where he played the little starlet's father. In that same year, he was the lead in White Fang, based on the Jack London book. The following year, he appeared in The Lady Escapes with Gloria Stewart, the old lady from Titanic, who played the 1997 version of Kate Winslet's Rose. Later on in his career, he ended up in the sort of goofy monster flick The Phantom from 10,000 Leagues. Okay, I suppose I should get back to this picture show, or else I'm going to have a hoppin' mad little lady to deal with.
You bet your muffins, mister.
See what I mean? But let's get into the thrilling conclusion of Blonde Ice, and we'll wrap up this episode.
Oh, what a fun little change of pace. This was great.
Yeah, I suppose it is fun to sometimes play a little dress up and do some different stuff in types of movies.
Neato. So what fun are we going to have next week?
Oh, probably back to the normal stuff, us working in an enema shop, dressed as a doctor and a nurse, you know, the same old, same old.
But...
Anyway, the walls start to close in around Claire a bit. She's got another fellow snooping around her business who goes by the name Blackie. Now, Blackie was the pilot who took her home, and she paid to keep him silent when she wanted to intercept and kill her husband in the earlier parts of the movie. Well, he's figured out that there's something quite fishy about her. So, what'd she do to get rid of this character?
Shoots him right in the back.
Yep, but alas, Les is about to get his heart ripped out and stomped on again. That's because Claire has agreed to become the new congressman's wife.
Stanley says that so weird, too.
Yeah, it's kind of like an extra twisting of the knife. He also maybe adds an H to the word and an extra syllable. It's like he turned into Borat for a minute there and said, live. But shit doesn't last long because Claire tried to talk to us why she could never really be with him, but Stanley catches her trying to sweet talk Les, and Stanley tells her to pound sand.
Yeah, beat cheeks, Claire.
That's right, get lost. But crossing Claire is a really bad idea. Even if you're a congressman-elect, she'll fucking stab you.
And like an absolute dumbass, Les picks up the knife that killed Stanley.
Yeah, holy shit, Claire is absolutely insane. It's glorious.
He calls her a murdering little idiot. That's great.
This really is a fantastic example of the femme fatale character type. It's more than just that she's crazy. I mean, she is. Of course, femme fatales are also typically pretty, and Leslie Brooks is more than pretty. She's presented as this almost unattainable, while also totally friendly and flirty girlfriend, until she isn't anymore. When she finds a new fella, well, you're not necessarily nothing to her anymore, because she does keep you around with her charms. She's also kind of narcissistic and definitely a user of people to boot, but Claire Cummings is a very complicated character. And that's summed up really well at the end of the movie, too. Les is the last one to be with her after she's killed in a struggle over a gun when she attempts to kill Stanley's psychiatrist friend, who psychoanalyzed her into oblivion and warned him of her traits. And Les basically alludes to knowing her better than anyone else, but no one really knew her that well at all. In the final line, he says that she wasn't even that good of a newspaper woman.
Sick burn.
The sickest of burns.
I kind of loved this movie, Jeff.
Oh, I know you did. Why don't you give us those final thoughts on this movie?
Gladly. Claire is cool and cruel and amazing. She savages and ravages those around her. She tells her husband that she was saying goodbye to Les, who's like a brother to her, but, lady, that kiss would be pretty gross if he really truly was like a brother to you. Claire doesn't waste a single second when it comes to messing around with the fellas. When's a good time to fool around with another man? Why, at your own wedding to a different dude. Hell, go mess around with another guy right after your new boyfriend announced to all his friends that you're going to be his new wife while he celebrates being elected to Congress. Claire has no feelings. She's like a brick wall of pure opportunistic whims. Les says it best. You're not a normal woman. You're not warm. You're cold. Like ice. Yeah, like ice. Blonde ice. What a great line. The only thing that would make that better is if she slapped him and then he slapped her back, just to drive the point home that she's evil. So yeah, we needed this movie, Jeff. We needed this type of energizing bit of femme fatale, noir badassery on this show for a long time. This is easily 5 poops out of 5. If there's anything that could make you go out and buy a trench coat, fedora, and smoke cigars more than this movie, I'd be surprised.
Wow, what a review. You really did like this movie, huh?
This movie completes me, Jeff.
That's something.
I feel like I could take some lessons from Claire, too.
What?
Yeah, you know, I really need to learn how to get everything I could want in life, by any means necessary.
You're not suggesting...
What, that I might stab you to get a bigger slice of this pie we have here at the enema shop?
Oh, that's pretty funny there.
Funny? You think I'm funny? Well, look at me, the funny one now. No, go ahead. Keep laughing. I'm enjoying this new role of being the funny one now.
Okay, so, this is getting pretty scary now. We all had a good laugh. Maybe we should...
Maybe we should... What? What maybe should we do, Jeff?
I was thinking that we could, you know...
No, I don't know, Jeff. What were you thinking?
The guy down at the other end of the strip mall, the one who does the counseling and...
The head shrinking?
Oh, now, I wouldn't call it so much that. He just helps people with problems.
Uh-huh.
Hey, Poop Shoot, got anything that could help me out here? Oh, well, whole lot of help you are.
What's the matter, Jeff? Not sure how to end this episode?
I have no idea how to end this episode. It's not like I've ever really been good at ending these things.
What a shame. Poor Jeffrey. Maybe not sure how to get out of this predicament with a femme fatale slowly getting more and more murderous, huh?
Maybe if I just, slowly kind of wheel my way off screen over here, but... Oh, there's a... I guess I gotta go the other way then. So I'll just wheel myself off here and, oh my god, oh fuck.